In a lot of previous episodes, we have talked about brands, personal brands, but also company brands, and how you can use them to move your sales forward. I wanted to invite someone that knows a lot about this. On this episode of The Sound of Sales, I've invited Stef. He wrote 4 books about branding. Company branding, personal branding, you name it. He's an expert in this field. In this episode, we talked about how sellers can use personal branding in order to move and influence their sales. It's a super interesting episode, and I hope you learn a lot from this one. How to build a human-to-human brand. I am Bram, and this is The Sound of Sales. Could you do me a quick favor if you're listening to this? Please hit the follow or subscribe button. It helps more than you think.
I rather choke on greatness than nibble on mediocrity. People trust people rather than they trust companies. You need to focus on human-to-human interactions and preferably relations with your target audience.
Stef, welcome to The Sound of Sales.
Thank you.
It was Maarten introducing you to me.
Yeah, I heard. Pretty impressive introduction, I must say.
Yeah, he was. You shaped who he is today. Let's say it like that.
Yeah. I was surprised to find that out, but I had some impact on his life apparently, so it's nice.
Yeah. For the people that don't know who Stef is, if I would ask your wife or your children, what would you reply to me?
They would say I'm a very ambitious person, to say the least, always busy, and I think most people would associate me with branding in one shape or another. So I think that sums me up in 3 words, maybe.
Yeah. And if I would ask your 3-year-old daughter, does she know what Daddy does for a living?
I doubt that. She's just finding out why there are barcodes on products. So she
Awesome.
She noticed that you need to scan those in order to pay for your goods in the shops. So she's starting to find out why we need to work. It's to make money and to buy stuff and to buy things. I don't think she knows what I do. No, it took me a while to convince adult people to and then explain them what I do for a living. So I think a 3-year-old, she's clever though, but maybe not that much yet.
Awesome. You wrote a lot of books to explain what you do, or you pioneered on the personal branding. We had multiple people on the show within the sales sphere that talked about personal branding. So I had to bring an expert to the show.
All right, great.
For once and for all, branding is not marketing, right?
Absolutely not. Branding has nothing to do with marketing, actually. Marketing is a tool to convey your brand values and to communicate with your target audiences, both internal and external stakeholders. But branding is a discipline on its own, in fact, and personal branding is as well, actually.
Yeah. Before we recorded, you had to put on your jacket, as that is part of your personal brand.
Of course, yeah.
What are the things that you notice that people are really missing or misunderstanding about this whole branding concept? Because currently it's more of a buzzword that people think, I'm gonna do this and this and this, and that it's it.
Well, there's 2 answers, depending how you ask me the question. In fact, there's branding and there's personal branding. When we talk about branding, I think the most prevalent misconception about branding is that it's part of marketing, or at least related to marketing, when in fact it is not about your brand. We say that to clients all the time. I discuss this during keynote speeches as well. It's not about your brand. It's about what your brand makes possible. Your brand is your most valuable asset to reach certain objectives or to combat certain challenges you face as an organization. And the same goes for personal branding. Of course, the biggest misconception in personal branding, or there are a lot of misconceptions about personal branding, but the biggest one is people telling me, I don't have a personal brand. I don't need a personal brand. And so they they grossly underestimate the impact of a first impression, a second impression, a third impression, and so on. And so the cliche about you can only make a good impression, first impression, once is actually true, and it's proven time and time again in our daily lives, but also in academic studies around the world, that you have a certain impact from the very first millisecond you meet someone. They have an idea about you, and the fact that today in 2022 I still meet people who are not fully aware of the impact of this personal brand on how people perceive them is shocking to me, in fact, because it's something that has been around for quite a while. You introduced me a few minutes ago as a pioneer in personal branding. I'm not really a pioneer in personal branding. I'm a pioneer in Flemish personal branding. So I introduced the concept here in Belgium because before that people saw it as an American thing, as making robots out of your staff, or demanding people to behave in a certain way or a uniform way, and that's absolutely not what personal branding is about. It's about making visible what you're good at, exposing your talents to the world, your skills to the world, and making sure people notice this expertise and your particular personal mindset, your personal views on things.
Yeah, it's the reason why I started this podcast is because Michael Humble told me, like, nobody knows you. You need to start creating more. True. To put it out there. But another conversation that I had with him is also that not every company is super happy for their employees to build that personal brand, because they think, like, what if they go away, or are they gonna be able to, like, put our company brand alongside that personal brand? Do you notice that is a real hurdle or struggle?
Not as much as it used to be. In fact, it's true. This is something you have to keep into account. If you invest in your staff or your people and you want them to become personal brands, I only see advantages in this strategy. I think it's a dream of every company to have an army of ambassadors who are personal brands on their own, who have their own network, their own visibility, their own name, their own expertise, publicly broadcasted. So I think it's a good thing for any organization to have lots of strong personal brands on board, or at least one. Usually it's the CEO or someone who is the face of a company. What I see or what I have seen in the past 20 years is that the hurdle you describe, the fear of people leaving, or the fear of people saying something stupid as a strong personal brand and thereby affecting the corporate brand negatively, I think these hurdles are less and less important as we have introduced in our company life, our daily lives, a way of dealing with these things. I mean, organizations are aware of the impact their people have, and more than they are 20 years ago. And so as long as personal branding is used to match certain values, because this is also part of personal branding, match the values of the person and match them with the corporate values, and there's an alignment there, I don't see a real problem. I don't see a real danger there, especially when you allow these people to be trained or skilled in the art of personal branding. If you guide them through this process and you facilitate them developing their own brand, I think that's a good strategy for any company, actually.
Yeah, you see it. I follow some people that are really building out that personal brand on LinkedIn and other channels. And what you often notice is they switch companies and they take a whole new personal brand. Like, I'm now an expert in this thing. Yeah, it dilutes a little bit it dilutes a little bit their credibility at that point.
Yeah, I understand, because of course your personal brand, like any other brand, changes over time. It's not set in stone. I have a personal brand that is different today than it was when I wrote my first book on the subject. And of course, people evolve, people have no experiences, both professionally and personally. So people change. But what you say is right. The key aspect to a great personal brand is authenticity. And I know that's a word that has been hyped a lot in corporate communications or in management discussions. But authenticity is key. As long as you as a brand, your basic brand, who you are, how you would be assessed by others, like your 3-year-old daughter, remains the same, authenticity is easier to achieve. There's a difference when you discuss the LinkedIn issue or the people on LinkedIn. There's a difference between people being a spokesperson for a certain brand or a certain category or a certain industry and being a strong personal brand. It's not because you're loud or visible that you are a strong personal brand. Personal branding is about conveying to the world what you stand for and acting accordingly. And maybe in an ideal situation, link your personal brand to a corporate brand. This is important, and the authenticity as well is important because people trust people rather than they trust companies. And so every brand should have some sort of evangelism program, or at least an evangelist. It can be the business owner, it could be the CEO, it could be the marketing manager, whatever. When they switch positions to another company, for instance, the essence of their brand should remain the same. Of course, they are a spokesperson for another brand, but their personal brand should not change as dramatically that people are turned away by them or even averted by them. Huh?
Yeah, it's something that you start to think about is how can you mix the two things and still be authentic to your audience?
Well, let's say I work for Pavlov, which is a niche consultant in brand consultancy. Yeah. When my company gets sold to another company, or when I make I make a switch to a completely different industry, the person who I am and what I believe is right to do and what I'm passionate about and the skills I have obtained over the years, they don't change. Whether I work for Pavlov or another company, it shouldn't really matter. And that's the authenticity I speak about. If suddenly you become a completely different person, and I don't mean changing your hairstyle or changing your clothing style, but you completely talk about completely different values. You suddenly are an expert on a field no one associates you with. You have to rebuild your brand. This is not something that happens overnight. And if that's not done right, the phenomenon you describe occurs, where people say, okay, how can you be an expert in branding and tomorrow be an expert in something completely different?
Yeah.
It all depends on context, of course. It's if you're in technology, which is a broad sector, of course, you can change from cloud hosting to software, of course. Your expertise and your skills and your passion for IT, they still remain. I have a passion, for instance, for interior design. If I were to switch from branding to interior design tomorrow, this would have a significant impact on my corporate brand efforts, of course, but also on my personal brand. I have to convince people that I'm still the same Stef Verbeeck, but I'm doing something different with my belief system and with my skills and expertise.
Yeah, if you remain within the same industry, your audience will more or less stay the same as well. If you would now switch to interior, you would be talking to a whole different audience that never heard of you, basically.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. What made you write that first book? Like, what were you doing before that? How did you get into this?
Well, I got into this when I was, I think, 16 years old. I was tired of school real early. So when I was in high school, I started a job at Planet Internet. It's a brand that does not exist anymore, at least not in Belgium. It was an internet pioneer. It was the first independent internet service provider in our country, in Belgium. So I started working there as a technical agent, a support agent actually. I sat there 4 hours a day after school, picking up telephones, Planet Internet, good evening, can I help you? This is Stef. What's your username? And this, mind you, this was the time of dial-up internet. So people phoned in with a question. We tried to remedy it. They had to hang up the telephone line and try whether it worked and what we suggested. So I did this for a few years, and I noticed pretty quickly that I had a passion for all things web, internet, websites, web design especially. So I developed the skill. I taught myself to develop websites. Again, this is during the late 90s of last century. Yeah. So we're talking Dreamweaver web pages, front page web pages, plain HTML, a little bit of PHP and MySQL. And because I started designing websites, I really thought, okay, this is something I can do for a living. I didn't feel like studying much. I thought there was an upcoming business there, and so I started, like many young guys, I started developing websites and logos for, the bakery around the corner, or a friend's business, or a party we were organizing, for instance, as young guys. And I decided pretty quickly by the age of 19, okay, I need to do this for a living. And so I started my own company. The most general marketing and communications agency you can imagine. We did everything from logo design to websites to flyers and brochures. We did stickering for websites. Whatever they asked us and was vaguely related to marketing, we did for clients, small SME clients. And so it grew a little bit, and by the time we were doing this for a few years, and I'm saying we because I did this with Kirsten. Kirsten was my wife at the time, my first wife. We did this, the two of us. We hired someone when it became more busy. We had more work, so we hired an extra guy, and so we did this, the three of us. And at a certain point, we were wondering, okay, how to scale this? And the answer was we couldn't scale it anymore. Because the market was crowded for what we were doing. And when we wanted to compete with the large agencies in our sector, you had to have a completely different business model, completely different funding, and so on. So we thought, okay, what would we do to make a difference without spending millions of other people's money, money we didn't have, and so we needed investors for that. So we decided, okay, let's focus on brand strategy. This is something we had been doing automatically for our clients, not just design a logo, but think about color psychology, think about customer motives, and so on and so on. And so we had a certain strength and a certain name in brand strategy, and we started doing that. And around the same time, to answer your question, because I'm diverting here, but okay. At the same time we noticed, okay, why only limit this information, this knowledge, these models, these processes, why only limit it to companies? And why not do this for people as well? And it's a stupid coincidence, and I don't think I really told this story before, but at a certain point I was watching a Disney movie with my stepkids. It's called The Kid. It features Bruce Willis, the action hero star from the Die Hard movies at the time. And the movie is about him meeting himself as a child. It's a stupid, cheesy movie for the whole family. I would not recommend, but what I noticed is that he in the movie, the adult Bruce Willis character is a publicist, a PR guy, a spin doctor, and he advises or he offers advice to people in trouble. So politicians, at a certain point, a CEO of a company who receive bad press, and he's helping them as an image consultant. That's how he's called professionally in the movie. And I thought, why not become image consultants? So we looked into that, and you could not find a course to become an image consultant in Belgium. So both Kirsten and I went to Alphen aan de Rijn in the Netherlands, and we completed a course that certified us as image consultants, image professionals. And this included everything. This included clothing style, this included body language, etiquette, stuff like that. So we started to offer that to clients as well, individual clients. CEOs of companies, we met sales teams from companies. We even coached ministers, politicians from all ideological fields during that time. And so I thought the way to install myself as the personal branding guy is write a book about it. And in fact, before I was actually really investing time in writing this first book, I was contacted by a publisher who had heard through the grapevine that I was thinking about writing a book. This was Lando Campus, and they contacted me saying, okay, we heard from these and these and these people that you're planning to write a book about it in Dutch. do you have a publisher yet? Because we're actually looking to publish something on this topic. We see this topic emerging in management circles. So we want to publish something about it, preferably in Dutch, written by someone who has written this in his own native language, because the other option was they would translate a British or American book about personal branding, which were around at the time. And so I said, no, I don't have a publisher yet. We spoke, we had a meeting, and I immediately signed a contract there for my first book, which became Mensen als Merken, People as Brands. In fact, the book Maarten referred to when he was in your podcast a few episodes back. And so that's how I became a writer, actually. I always enjoyed writing in school as well. And so that was not really... it sounds arrogant to say that it wasn't an immense challenge, actually. I really enjoyed writing this book. It left me wanting more afterwards. So yeah, it was an organic flow of things, from marketeer to consultant in everything, reputation, branding, image, to becoming, without actually planning to, the personal branding expert in Flanders.
What a journey.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No regrets.
Yeah. How many books later are we talking now?
Well, my fourth book is the last one. It was published in March 2020. In fact, it was launched in the very first week of the very first COVID lockdown. So what better time to publish a new book than when all bookstores are closed, of course. And I'm actually writing my fifth at the moment. So the first three books are on personal branding. My last one, Brand Hacking, is about the 7 crucial insights every brand should know to become indispensable. And the new one is about relationships between brands and their target audiences, and why humanity and emotion play a crucial role in building these relationships.
Yeah. That's becoming more and more important, I think, in for example, in sales as well, is that it's all about the humans. It's not about you're selling a product from a company. You're dealing with a person.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that, because there's a paradox. Yes, you hear that more and more, and I see that more and more companies understand the added value of these human relationships, and they treat customers, whether there are B2C customers or B2B customers, as people. They understand, even for an e-commerce website, that the seduction by a brand and the transaction at some point is always done by a human. Right? It's not about data, it's not about technology, it's not about algorithms, and there's always a human decision factor, and this human needs to trust you, needs to like you, even love you in a perfect scenario, in order to trust you and in order to do business with you. On the other hand, what we see, and this is a process that has been accelerated, especially in the last 10 years, and especially during the worldwide pandemic, is that companies focus more and more on optimizing processes, also marketing and sales processes. And this means for many companies, in reality, although they claim to be customer-centric and although they claim to care about the world and the people walking on this planet, in reality, they are focused on efficiency. They're focused on maximization of profits, margins, and conversion. And so they reduce their clients to little dots in a CRM system. In a CRM database, they focus on transactions rather than on relationships. And of course, this has something to do with the world we live in and the way we consume today. Certain products, especially commodities. If I need a new mouse for my computer, I can order that with 2 clicks on an internet site, and it is delivered next day to my doorstep. And there's no emotion involved. You would think, of course, there's always emotion involved. Yeah. So we're getting accustomed to that, both as consumers and as brands. And what we see is that one of the consequences of this evolution is that we create a distance between ourselves and our clients. And I'm an avid, how do you say that? I'm on a quest to convince brands to focus on people, their own people, but also the people they do business with. And the more technology becomes available, the more data we have at our fingertips to analyze, the more tools we have to automate certain things and to digitize certain things, the more distance is created between brands and their customers, which is ironic because it should allow us to become even closer to people. And so there's a paradox there, which I'm addressing in this new book, but I'm also addressing when we work with clients, of course. Here at Pavlov, we explain every client, you need to be human. You need to focus on human-to-human interactions and preferably relations with your target audience.
So you've written a book about the 7 hacks. If we shift that a little bit to salespeople, right? The sound of sales, there are sellers listening. Yeah. We're talking about personal brands, and we're talking about, all right, we need to become human to human. What do you think are, it doesn't have to be 7, let's say the top 3 things that sellers should start applying today in order to optimize their whole human to human approach?
Well, the first thing they need to do is understand their target audience. And this seems it seems like a cliche and something I'm preaching to the choir here. Every seller will be convinced that they know their client. In fact, the question is, do you really, really, really know your client? What we see is that many of the brands we work with communicate with their target audience in a very rational and distant way. So there's a distance. That's because they focus on products, they focus on their own organization, and we all have a tendency to explain what we do and why we are awesome to our target audience. While in fact, the role of a brand and people connected with that brand, both in marketing and sales, should be to look for real motives. And those are most of the time, 99% of the time, these are emotional factors, emotional motives. Why do we buy an expensive car? It's not to move ourselves from point A to point B. We can do that in a cheap car as well. We buy the expensive one because we believe the brand we buy does something for our own personal identity, for instance. Or we want to convey our success and our wealth to others without even knowing them, and just while we're driving down the street. We want to become or appear more attractive to the other sex by choosing a certain car. So there's an emotional factor that decides why we buy, how often we buy, which brands we buy, and so on. And capturing these emotional motives is crucial for successful sales. It's not about, even if you're in the business of selling very unsexy products, because a car could be a sexy product, but even if you're selling insurances, there's always an emotional motive. So find out what that is and focus on that. With marketing and sales, and your internal organization should be focused on answering that motive. The other one effectively is personal branding, and that's a tip I can give. When I said a while back that there's a distance between brands and their clients, one of the ways to bridge that gap in the future is becoming a human-to-human brand. And the best way to do this is by using your people, is by becoming a people-oriented business, focusing on your own employees or your own group of people working and representing your brand, and meanwhile focusing on the personal brands that are your customers. These people are brands as well. And so aligning those, I think personal branding could be the future key towards a human-to-human business model. It's not just a way of promoting yourself as a human, it's also a way to bridge the gap that has been created by many processes and blind digitalization of processes and interactions with your target audience. So those two are for me are crucial in becoming a best-selling company. Last but not least, you have to understand that people, whether it be B2B or B2C, no longer just buy what you do, but also why and how you do it. So Simon Sinek has the golden circle, which is a model everybody knows by now. Be very conscious of your why. Why are you doing this? Is it because you believe you have a great quality product or service? Your competitor might have that too. Pardon. Mm-hmm. Think about your brand purpose. This is something we do as brand strategists. In sales as well, you can think about this purpose and you can convey this message to your target audience in order to capture their attention and make sure that you have an equal set of values to work with. But also, how do you do this? Not only what do you sell, but how do you sell it? It's about experience. And the banner behind me, I don't know if you can read it, says creating experiences is the new branding. And it's true. It's about experience. It's about the scent that's in your store. It's about the pen you sign a contract with. It's about the body language of your salesperson when you're meeting a potential client. These things all contribute to the brand experience, the customer experience. And so much more focus should be on this experience, because it is the primary driver. 73% of consumers worldwide say brand experience or client experience for me is the primary driver to interact with a company and buy there, which means that price and quality are less important to them than the offered experience. And 54% of respondents in a worldwide study say brands should invest more in client experience, customer experience. That means half of our customers believe that we don't care enough about them to offer them a valuable and authentic experience. So if you ask me for my 3 golden tips when it comes to branding related to sales, I think those should be it.
Often when you hear someone say like, okay, I'm gonna take these tips into account, I'm gonna start. Where do you start? Like, because a lot of people, what they will do is go to LinkedIn and they don't know what to post, so they go into pitching mode.
Yeah, that's working the other way around. Your pitch should be a result of a great strategy. Everything starts with strategy. Yeah. So the first thing you need to do is think about who you want to reach, what they are sensitive to, what communication or what message are they sensitive to, what do they care about and truly care about, not only when it comes to your product, but when it comes to their daily lives. Their daily lives, but also their professional lives, their family lives, and so on. And it's the motives I discussed earlier. Really understanding and capturing and acting upon these motives, which are 99% of the time are emotional arguments, emotional motives. So that's where you start your strategy, thinking about that and answering these motives with a brand purpose, a brand experience, as I said earlier. So the first thing you need to do is conceive a strategy for yourself, and not just bluntly fly into it. And this is the other way around. It goes for selling, but it goes for marketing and branding as well. There's no worse strategy than just hit and miss strategy. I see startups thinking, okay, we have a half decent product, and the first thing we need to do is create as much traffic as possible and focus on conversion optimization. Sell, and create volume. Okay, it's a choice they make. I don't believe this is the right way to go. I think the best way to go is focus on who do we want to target, what do we want to tell them, and what do we offer as an experience, or what do we really offer apart from our product or our service. And this strategy is a starting point for every brand to sell anything, whether it be insurances or small little nails to attach beams to your building, I don't know, clothing, commodities like toothpaste or jam, or I don't know.
Yeah, the more you come to think about it, the more that you see that you're being played by brands without knowing.
True, and it goes really, really, really far. It's insane. I contemplated writing a book about it, but others have done this before me and even better. For instance, Martin Lindström is a brand strategist. He has written great books. One of them is Brand Washed. I would recommend you reading it. And Brand Washed includes all the psychological tricks and all the tricks brands use to become more attractive. The typical things like pricing and packaging, for instance, but also there are brands that try to affect unborn children in the womb with music or smell or taste, and to prime them even before birth to like certain brands. If you look at the field of retail, the retail branding, how the intensity of a light shining on a certain product, the beats per minute in the music that is played, the pattern in the carpet or in the floor, the colors on the wall, the smells in a store, how they all affect our buying behavior and our loyalty as customers of these brands. It goes really, really, really far. And using neuromarketing and neurotechnology, the past 15 years, brands, especially large brands, have invested in neuromarketing and know exactly what makes us tick, which parts of our brain light up like firework when we are confronted with certain things. So it goes really, really far. And brands, I say this with the most respect, because as a brand strategist, I'm partially involved in these tactics in order to seduce target audiences to like brands and interact with them.
Messing up our minds.
Messing up your mind. It's more of an ethical question or a philosophical debate. I don't like messing up with people's minds. On the other hand, my company is called Pavlov for a reason. We want to make sure that our clients react with a Pavlov reaction and start salivating.
I only realize that now.
It's not that we are such fans of Russian scientists, especially today, but that was the whole idea behind our brand name.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a hotel where I love to go, and from the moment you step into there, you have the smell experience.
Yeah.
You go into their bathroom, you have the soaps, same smell, and at the end you have a little shop where you can buy the candles and you can buy so now I have hand soap of the hotel, and every time I use it, I have my girlfriend telling me, we need to go back to the hotel.
You're transported back, and that's exactly what great branding does and what great brand experiences does. And I guarantee you that hotel has put a lot of thought and time and budget into developing or choosing the exact smell that corresponds with what they want to create as an atmosphere or with their values as a brand. The fact that they sell it to you afterwards in order to seduce you to come back or even bring you back mentally to your state when you were visiting there. It's a great way of creating loyalty. It's a great way of becoming a love brand. Sounds like a smart hotel brand here.
Yeah, indeed. They tricked me. Now I got them. What part of your job do you love the most? Because you must. It's so many different aspects that you can touch. It's so creative, but at the same time, it goes so deep into psychology.
Well, actually, half of what we do is psychology. Maybe even more than half. It's about stakeholder management. It's about anthropology, finding out why people do certain things, make certain decisions. So I must say that my favorite part of my job is working with people, with my clients. I love nothing more than discussing certain complex topics or guiding clients through a difficult rebranding process, for instance. That's what I like the most. So the pitching moments where we present what we have thought up or concluded from an analysis to our clients and discussing this and challenging their ideas and be challenged by them. And so everything has to do with inspiring people, telling them something they might not ever considered before, discussing that as in a close relationship between the C-level of a company and our consultants. That's what I like the most, being away from my desk and meeting people. That's why I like to speak at conferences as well. That's why I like to write books, because I can discuss ideas with people. So I'm a real people's person. I'm an extrovert personality. So the whole COVID pandemic was a nightmare for me. Business-wise, it was very interesting because we had our best years ever during the COVID-19 lockdowns, because brands were panicking and they looked for our help in order to remain relevant or become relevant after the worldwide pandemic had ended. And it was a time of standstill for many organizations, so they use this time to reevaluate their models, to think about their why and their purpose, to find new ways to keep their own employees motivated and facilitate ambassadorship with them. So it was an exciting time, but for me as a person, I'm usually never home. I try to spend as much time with my wife and my daughter as I can, but on the other hand, I really missed having to give 3 keynote speeches every week, or visiting some networking reception, because that's what I love about my job, the interaction with people, and the fact for me personally that I learn new things, discover new things every week. We read so many academic research, we do so many focus studies with clients of our clients. The insights you gain from that are huge, and sometimes even keep me up at night, because I'm surprised by certain findings, or keep thinking about certain insights. I'm passionate about branding. I don't think it will die. If I do move to something else tomorrow, if I quit my job and start an interior business, it will be branded like crazy, because it's a passion.
It's nature of the person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't know anything else. I'm doing this since the age of 18, so it's 21 years now, and I never got bored in those plus 20 years doing this. So that's a good thing, because I'm easily bored.
And what makes you feel inspired, or who inspires you in this? Because spending all these years, like, there must be... Do you ever get bored of it?
No, or almost never. Of course, like any other person on this planet, I have my weaker moments, or times when I don't feel particularly motivated to do anything. We all have days we like to, curl up under a blanket in the fetal position and watch Netflix all day. So this happens to the best of us. But in general, I would say, no, I don't get bored by what I do. And what inspires me is, as I said, conversations with people, random people I meet at business events, for instance, or conferences, but also clients in all shapes or forms, whether it be a small SME or a startup, or a huge multinational company or a government we work for. The insights and the experiences of these people inspire me tremendously. But I'm also an avid reader. I read a lot. I read newspapers. I read business magazines. I'm on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, even on LinkedIn, of course, which is an important medium for us as well. And yeah, you see the books behind me. I read a lot of books. Especially
how much books do you read in a year?
Well, it's time consuming, so I try to keep myself to a tempo of 1 book a month. Some years I exceed those 12 books a year. Like last year I read like 15, 16 books. And I'm only counting the ones that I read from the very first to the very last page, because we skim books as well. We read them diagonally, or we very specific niche fields. We read certain parts of a book that are important for a project or for a keynote I'm giving. Yeah. And yeah, I'm motivated one day more than the other day, so it depends on my mood and my agenda as well. I try to find the time to read and make the time to read. So that inspires me, but as anyone will tell you about their personal inspirations, inspiration is sometimes in the most unexpected places. I love London, for instance, as a city. Just walking around there, going there, shopping there, looking at advertising on British television or on London street buses inspires me. Playing a game with my daughter, looking at stupid YouTube movies or YouTube clips, watching Netflix, for instance, going out with my friends, smoking a cigar, going golfing, stuff like that. They might inspire you in the most crazy ways. So, yeah.
If you touched upon the subject, that not every day is a good day. If you look back in the last few years, which moment or day do you consider being your hardest?
Oh, it's a good question. I'm a very straightforward person, which means that I have set my goals and objectives for myself, and I think that my worst days are those when I feel like the rug is pulled from beneath me. Like a customer that has a certain, or a client that has a certain comment on what we did, for instance. It happens that we produce an advice or provide clients with insights that we really love and we believe are the best way to go. And they not only challenge it, which challenging our advice is always a welcome conversation, but they see things completely differently and choose not to do anything with your work. Those are times when I go to bed thinking, okay, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? Am I becoming arrogant in my expertise and thinking that everything I produce for clients is pure gold, for instance? Those are the times that I doubt myself and even doubt my expertise and skill as a professional. It goes away pretty quickly. I must say, I sleep one night on it, and next day I get out of bed happy and passionate as ever before. But those are the moments that I consider my worst days, that I'm challenged in a way that makes me doubt my own knowledge or my own expertise about certain things. And of course, when you're feeling ill, for instance, I have a 3-year-old daughter. My wife is about to give birth in a few weeks to our second one. I imagine during the next few months I will have not enough sleep.
A tough time.
Will be short nights once over. So they affect my abilities to last during the day. I'm a hard worker. I don't mind pulling long days or even working the weekends, writing my books, for instance, or even work for clients. But you have a family as well. You need to focus on my 2 little girls in a few weeks, on my wife who deserves my attention, my friends, my family, and so on. And this is also what I consider my worst moments are those times when I'm not able to give those people who I care about a lot the attention they need or they expect from me. So it's a continuous balance act between doing what I love professionally and doing what I love personally.
If something that I notice is if you're caught up in stuff or you're not feeling 100%, is a guilt for your personal brand, because like I need to make sure that I put something out this week, or I need to make sure this and that, so that there's the extra pressure. Is that something that you notice as well?
I notice it as well, but I try to protect myself from that disappointment in my own frequency of posting, for instance. I have weeks that I post daily on LinkedIn, and when I'm busy or I don't feel 100%, you won't see me all week. It happens, and it all comes down to do not put too much pressure on yourself. I see a lot of people working with content calendars and plans to convey content, to produce new content, and so on. There's no shame in repeating a YouTube clip you uploaded a year ago. It probably will be still relevant today. So some people consider that lazy to reproduce old content. I think it's one of the best things I do in order to make sure that I communicate enough about what we do here. I recognize that feeling. On the other hand, it's crucial to not get caught up in that, because it will make sure your motivation to create new content will be lower as well if you put constant pressure on yourself. Like each Tuesday I need to have a new episode of my podcast. Each week I need to produce a new white paper or a new downloadable from my website. I think it will be difficult to adhere to that schedule for one, and to remain motivated over time. So my advice would be let it go and yeah.
So you would advise to not build a whole content calendar for your personal brand for the next few months?
No, I wouldn't say that. For instance, I have a plan for my personal brand. I know which podcast episodes I want to record with guests. I know what YouTube clips are ready to be uploaded and distributed. I write columns and articles for press for the media in Belgium. I have a PR agency in Brussels who takes care of that and contacts me. I have a contact there who sends me a WhatsApp message at 9 o'clock at night. Okay, this has happened. What's your opinion on it? Can you write a short piece? Send it to me by email so I can distribute it to editors of preferred media. So I feel that pressure as well. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have a content calendar. I'm saying you shouldn't feel guilty if you skip a week.
Yeah, if you don't.
And if you don't produce at a certain, I mean, you're not always as creative. There's some times that I have writer's block as well. For instance, last week I planned on writing on my new book all Saturday. Well, what I did is work in my garden all day, play with my daughter, take time to discuss certain things with my wife, who has a very busy job as well. Prepare for the newborn that's coming here in a few weeks. So I tend to feel guilty because that's a day that I should have used actually to work on my new book, and there's a strict deadline from my publisher as well. On the other hand, I'm thinking, if I'm sitting at my keyboard all day staring at my screen without any form of inspiration, the dreaded writer's block, it doesn't help me, it doesn't help anyone. So rather do something different then.
Yeah, that's true. Why not? As a last question for you, you're a writer, so this might be an easy one. But if I could give you a billboard on the side of the road, a large billboard, what would you put on it, and why? As
a life lesson or as a promotion for myself or my brand?
You can choose, but not purely marketing related. Let's keep it at that.
Yeah, that's a difficult question, actually. Personally, I would use that space to convey one of my life mottos to the world, which is, I believe that fortune favors the bold, and it's a classic as well. But nothing I have or nothing what I am has been handed to me. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. My father was a university professor who preferred to be locked up between his books and his stacks of paper. My mother was a house mother. So everything I achieved in life, nothing has been handed to me. I didn't have parents with money, so I didn't start off as an 18-year-old with a bank account full of money or a huge network. I did that by myself without really knowing what I was doing. And it's only in hindsight you see the path you have followed. But one thing that all key moments in my life have in common is that I always went for it. I believed in the possibility of reaching certain targets. For instance, I wanted to write a book. Okay, I would not have rested without at least one book published in my name. So I have certain personal and professional goals, and I think people who don't, in my own environment, who don't seem to reach their goals are those who don't believe them themselves. And they say, okay, it's too ambitious, I'm too afraid to take certain steps. Well, luck is something you create for yourself. So fortune favors the bold is a slogan I believe in very much. Only if you believe, it sounds so corny and so cliche, but only if you believe things can happen and you have clear objectives and clear goals for yourself, they will actually happen. You need to push your luck. And when people challenge that and ask me if that's the best way to live your life, I always tell them that I rather choke on greatness than nibble on mediocrity. And
I love that one.
That's the way I live my life.
I love it. With these fine words, Stef, I would like to thank you for joining me on the Sound of Sales.
Thank you for having me. It was a great talk.